So I got this comment and I just want to address it because I'm still going to argue that 99% of the time, the quote functional laboratory testing isn't necessary. And there's a very big reason why. So, again, if you did standard blood work, like if your doctor had ordered any of the hormone testing and they had ordered a liver test, which is included in the comprehensive metabolic panel, you would have already known the answers to that and you wouldn't have had to pay $465 to get it. In fact, a month ago, I had a gigantic panel of blood work run because I hadn't had it done in slightly over a year. And so when I was at my OB-GYN's office, I was like, hey, can we run the blood work again? And she's like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And we ran it. It was $168. And let me show you where you can see the liver enzymes that would tell you about your liver issues that the Dutch test can also tell you. But let me show you what those are and how much more detailed information we could get out of that. So you can see in the upper right-hand corner, these are my results. So see this alk phosphate number? You can look here and see that I'm actually, based on this, a little bit vitamin and mineral deficient. But if this were like way up here, we'd be thinking, oh, there's something wrong with the liver. On the same boat, the ALT and AST, we want to be as close to 15 as possible. When they're not, that indicates, number one, that something's going on with the liver. But number two, if they're way high, that we've got an issue with a potential autoimmune disorder. Another way to look at the liver is through the bilirubin. Both numbers there can matter. And again, if they are out of range, we know something's going on with the liver. And this is a year ago's blood work. But what I want you to look at here is the ranges here. So in the protein numbers, we want 6.9 to 7.4, and in the albumin, 4.0 to 5.0. So if I go back to this report, you can see that protein is 7.6 and the albumin is 4.9. So I'm showing a little bit of signs at this point in time of leaky gut. The other interesting thing is I had a slight little problem for about 3 weeks around that time with a slight, what looked like autoimmune condition. And here you can see the estradiol. Yep, it's right there in the blood work. And then here's my testosterone panel. Now let's say that something in that blood work looked way off. And there was no medications, there was no supplementation, life was like perfect, and I was going in complaining of a bunch of symptoms. Then it might make sense to run the Dutch test. But to run the Dutch test without doing that blood work first doesn't make sense, because that blood work tells us so much information. Like, I could tell from the panel that the liver stuff is included in that my liver's functioning fine. I have leaky gut, which is probably why I had that flare up of that little autoimmune thing, and that my hormones are all doing okay, including my thyroid looked amazing, which I was super happy about, because sometimes my T3, so my ability to convert T4 into T3, will be just a little bit low. The T3 being low, if the rest of the thyroid panel, so if your free T4 is fine, your TSH is fine, and your free T3 is still low, we also know there's an issue with the liver, because T4 is converted to T3 primarily in the liver, also in the gut and healthy muscle tissue, but primarily in the liver. So again, without a Dutch test, I can look at your blood work and tell what's happening with your hormones and what's happening with your liver. I don't need a $465 test to do it. When you could pay cash, I paid I think it was $165.68 to get a full panel of labs, including autoimmune antibodies for the thyroid, for my ANA, and for, there was something else. Anyway, $168. Yes, that's here in Denver, and it may be different other places. Like, I know when I run the labs for my clients who live in California, it tends to be about $220. But it's still not $465 or $650 if you do the comprehensive Dutch. The other thing is, like a year ago when I had the blood work run, there was some stuff going on. So then I submitted my bill that I paid cash to my insurance and was able to get reimbursed. Now, that said, I have had people that we have been able to submit to their insurance for the Dutch test and also had them reimbursed when the Dutch test showed exactly what was happening and what was going wrong, but they only got reimbursed about $75 out of the $650 that they paid. But that person was looking for answers because, like, her world was literally falling apart, and we didn't order blood work. Her doctor had ordered the blood work, and I just looked at it differently than the doctor and was like, "No, these numbers are out of range. You need to look further. Maybe the Dutch test is warranted." And what the Dutch test did was get her to an endocrinologist within 2 weeks, as opposed to she was looking at an 18-month wait. She then ended up being referred to a neurologist, and she had a pituitary surgery. So I'm not saying the Dutch test is never warranted. I'm just saying it's not warranted without regular blood work first, because for a way better investment, we can tell what's going on with you. Does that make sense?